Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Nelson of Signpost, and I'm really excited to have Ryan Shantz here of SumoQuote. He's going to talk about the 5 elements of a killer sales proposal, or how to ensure you can create a branding experience that focuses on your customer needs and, importantly, helps you close more deals. So Ryan has a great eye and a really interesting professional story. So first, before we get into these 5 elements, would love for you to share a little bit of your background, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. I appreciate you having me. It's definitely not your typical contractor or technology background. So I did go through, I was an installer of shingles for a roofing company back almost 20 years ago, 17 years ago. So, put in my time, but quickly realized this is not the long-term career that I was dreaming of. So went and did some real estate stuff, went and did a graduate degree, but ended up randomly enough buying a denim line, a blue jeans company. So um, again, not your typical contractor's approach. But that's really where I fell in love with branding and marketing. And it was in this area of how do you stand out when you're almost a commodity. Shingles are a commodity, right?
Mhm.
And installers are almost a commodity. How do you stand out in a really crowded marketplace? And fashion, it's fascinating how all of it works there. So so did a lot of interesting things there. Sold that company to a company over in Europe, and then got back to my roots again and bought in as an owner to a roofing company with some buddies, and that grew significantly. We're about 150, 160 employees now.
Mm.
And from that, we developed some technology around how to stand out and how to brand yourself differently, and really how to present, um, how to put something together that makes you look different than your standard contractor, so the homeowner knows they're going to get a different experience with you. So now I'm running a technology called SumoQuote.
I love that story, and it is an improbable one. And probably, you're the only contractor turned tech entrepreneur who was previously a fashion entrepreneur, right?
It's pretty rare, I think.
This is a great mix, but all of the lessons really feed into what you're doing now, I think, beautifully. And I'm really curious too, like, how did you come about this decision to buy the roofing company? Was it your prior experience as an installer, or like this opportunity came up and you guys decided to capitalize on it?
You know what? I've got some great partners on the roofing side, and the business had been running for 10 years without me. It was the same company that I had been an installer for, and a good friend of mine was the original founder on it. So once I was sort of ready to get out of denim, and I've always been an entrepreneur, he was kind of waving his arms in front of me and saying, "Hey, we're now no longer one crew and, owners on the roof all the time. Now we're 80 people, 85 people, and there's some significant things that we're up to and big ambitions that we've got." So that's what got me excited. And then just having partners, I know for roofing contractors, it's
Mhm.
pretty contentious because everybody's had good partners and bad partners, and you've got to be very careful. So I'm very grateful for my partners. We couldn't be doing what we're doing all together without each of us being able to focus on the parts that we work on. So yeah, it's been good getting back into the construction space and now into the technology space.
That's awesome. And yeah, I totally get you on the partner side of things. You hear a lot of horror stories from entrepreneurs and contracting who, haven't been able to make it work with the right co-owners.
Yeah, I remember my business law class from my undergrad degree. My professor, this is the only line I remember from that entire class, but he said, "Partnerships are the most dangerous ships to sail." And it's true. It's easier to exit a marriage than it is a partnership these days, right? So no, it's one of those things where finding the right people and the right level of integrity and who you want to work with and complementary skill sets, it's a pretty big deal.
Absolutely. Okay, well, with that in mind, I want to transition to this, the headline here of helping contractors close more jobs. My company talks about this a lot because contractors are concerned with, getting more and more leads, but we really think the opportunity also exists in doing better with the leads that you have, right? Um, A lot of contractors drop the ball once the lead comes in. Maybe they fail to follow up. Maybe their process is not dialed in throughout the consultation and then the proposal process. And there are really fundamental and easy things you can do to tighten up and to improve your close rate. So I think these 5 elements are really instructive to that and can make contractors more efficient day to day without a huge investment.
Yeah, it was something we tried to figure out with our company. We were never going to be the cheapest, nor did we want to be. So we were really trying to figure out how do we show the homeowner at the point of sale that we can give them a better experience and really stand out. And I've got a couple of things that I can share today. I'm going to share them visually just because yeah, the whole point of this stuff is to be able to change things visually, right? And so this is something that I think is fascinating from a contractor's perspective, right? So, here's the example, right? We've got a bottle of 7 Up on the left, regular green bottle, and consumers report the typical lemon lime taste. Same exact soda on the right, but it's tinted yellow. So suddenly consumers are reporting that it tastes more lemony. Like, it's so fascinating how your senses work together and visually can have such an impact on people. And so, yes, this whole concept of people can taste good design. Like, you see a picture of a pizza and your mouth starts watering. Like,
Yeah.
there's these reactions that we have. And so that's the approach that we really try to take, is how do we give a quote or a sales presentation that is so professional and so visually appealing that to a homeowner, it's like, well, obviously they're the most professional option. Why, these other ones, they're writing it on napkins, they're giving me a 1 pager with that's just focusing on price. Like, how do I even know what I'm getting with them? So that visual component, that was a really big thing for our company. It helped take our closing rate from 27% up to 44%, which was a 63% increase,
Yeah.
and was millions of dollars of additional revenue. Like, it had a massive impact on our business.
Right. And maybe you're talking about a similar set of leads or similar quantity of leads, right?
Yeah,
Similar investment on the marketing side, but it all came through a bigger, better process.
yeah.
Oh,
The most inexpensive way to get additional work is just to close more of the leads that are already coming into your funnel.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So let's give a brief overview of these 5 elements, and then I want to dive into some of the key components of them.
Sure, you bet. And again, I'll pop in and out here a couple of times, but um, these 5 elements, what I'm going to say is, when you're putting together this sales proposal or your quote, don't just think this is for communicating a price and that's it. The purpose is really, how can you use this to connect with the homeowner, to educate them, to understand and solve their problem, to remove risk, and then within that, to offer some social proof as well. And these are really the same things your salespeople should be doing. You want to have your reviews focusing on this stuff. You want your landing pages to be consistent with this. Like, this should be a consistent experience through everything that you're doing. But if you have 3 of them covered and in 2 areas it kind of falls off a cliff, the homeowner starts to get suspicious that things aren't really passing the smell test. And how are they really going to experience things with you in production? So these are the 5 that we're going to be focusing on today.
Cool, cool. And I know you'll go in depth on each of them more, but I want to kind of tie back to what you said earlier about not competing on price, not racing to the bottom, which I think is a goal that many quality contractors have, is they're mindful of their margins. They want to pay their people well. They want to keep them. So what instead should they focus on to make a connection with that homeowner? And why is that important?
You know what? This is where it's really about letting the homeowner steer the ship to a degree, right? So um, you want to make sure that you're speaking their love language, and there's a couple of things that I can sort of show you with that. Um,
'Cause we're not talking about pizza and 7-Up now, right? Like you talked about shingles being a commodity, and there's kind of an imbalance of information. Homeowners don't particularly know what properties a shingle should have necessarily, just that they
well,
need them.
yeah, and nor do they care that much. That's us thinking through, I'm speaking from a roofer's perspective. It's us thinking through roofer's lens is, well, where's the leak? How many layers are there? What kind of shingles should we install? All sorts of stuff like that. This one, I couldn't find the exact photo that I had taken, but so you'll notice the little word mark in the bottom right. But I had been at a customer's house and getting ready to put a quote together. And in our quotes, we always put the customer's house on the cover. This is the place where they spend Thanksgiving, where they spend Christmas, where they brought their new puppy home, all this stuff. But their dog stood on the driveway as I was about to take the picture, and I was just like, oh, this is too perfect. And so I knelt down low and I basically had half the picture be their dog with their house in the background. And they lost their minds when they saw it. Like they just loved it. And it's these little things of how do you emotionally connect the homeowner with your quote? Um, there's um, if the homeowner goes through and they mention their prize rose bushes 3 times, well, put in a photo of those prize rose bushes and mention how you're going to, double tarp them every night, how every morning you're going to water them, every night before you leave, you're going to give them a hug and a kiss, like all of these things about how you're going to care for these rose bushes, right? And now you're speaking their love language of what matters most to them. I love this example. Ted Williams, he wrote the book, The Science of Hitting.
Mhm.
So, and way ahead of his time in his thinking on big data and stuff like that, right? So for Ted Williams, one of baseball's all-time greatest hitters, he knew that there were 77 spaces a baseball could go through the strike zone. And he knew his batting average through every single space on there. So in this analogy, as a contractor, think of yourself as the pitcher, not as the batter. And if you're just given the exact same quote every time, you're just hucking the ball out there. You have no clue if it's a ball or a strike, or if it's low and away or in their sweet spot. Like you're just hucking it and hoping for the best. If you do some little things, put their house on the cover, put in photos of what matters to them, make sure you're explaining things properly, like all these things we're going to go through, you're now crafting this experience for them, and you're starting to zero in on that sweet spot of what's going to make it super easy for them to hit. So that's that concept of us wanting to connect with the homeowner. And really, we're trying to connect with what matters to them, connect with their subconscious at different levels. It's a very different way of thinking about sales than just, how low can my price go?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that attention to details, like that awesome picture of the house with the dog in front. I guarantee no other company did that provided a proposal, right? Like that is unique. And it also, you spoke about the rose bushes as just an example, incorporating those little details just to show that you're listening, I
Yeah.
think it's a long way, because again, they don't know what they're buying. They don't always care. And so, what kind of human connection can you make with them just to be a trusted advisor, just to be someone who they know is going to do a good job, will get them over the line and buy from you rather than, the next guy who does an inspection.
Yeah, and it ultimately, a lot of these little things, you're targeting the subconscious mind of the consumer. As opposed to going straight at them and trying to hit them with something, you're putting things in, and subconsciously, you're putting their fears at ease, and you're addressing concerns they didn't even know they had, and all these things. So it's a very different way of thinking about going through a sales process.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to circle back on educate, the concept of educating the homeowner, because although they don't always care about what the product shingles at the end of the day may do for them, you do have to build value, right? You do have to justify your price. You do have to, you know, provide some rationale for what goes into the job. Can you speak about that, what that means, and what a contractor should focus as part of this process?
You bet. You know, a lot of time it's it's trying to educate them really on details that are important and are about them. And so this example, this was actually from a storm in 2016. It's funny as contractors how we remember exactly what storm it was and how crazy it was and how big the hail and what part of town and all that. But I remember standing on the ground with this homeowner and saying, "Oh yeah, well, there's a dead spot up behind your chimney that goes through your first and second story up there. We got to make sure we address that when we're fixing this." And it's kind of just like, huh? What? Okay. But as soon as you make it visual, it's so much easier for them to consume.
Mhm.
Um, a it's been shown that information presented visually as opposed to text based, it's comprehended up to 10 times faster and it's retained up to 10 times longer. So if we just had the text on the right here, low comprehension and low ability to retain, I almost guarantee you they don't even read the text on the right here. All they're looking at is the photos, and it's just like, oh yeah, that doesn't look right. Oh, okay, I see what they're gonna do, and that's it. And now they can explain it to their partner later on that evening, and right, like it just all makes sense when it's visually put together like that. So to educate them on their home, the thing that's the most valuable to them, that on things that they never even knew existed or never even knew they should be concerned about, but doing it in a soft, easy way for them to consume. Yeah, this whole concept of, you said it before, of sliding yourself in as the trusted advisor and making their life easier. It's powerful in being able to really impact them and have them understand what you're going to be doing with them and how you can help them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've kind of already addressed my next question, which is all about becoming that trusted advisor. You're helping them uncover problems, like they probably can't see that part of their roof from the ground. Certainly
E-
not from within the house.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So pointing out those little nuances and things that you're going to take care of, I think go a long way to building that trusted advisor approach. I'm curious too, like even on the less sort of technical aspects of what you plan to do as part of the job, what else would you recommend in terms of becoming a trusted advisor as part of the overall sales process?
A lot of it I find depends on the situation. So, a retail roofing quote or presentation is going to be very different than an insurance one. It's going to be very different than a large multi-family or something like that. So, on retail, it's often about those little details like I just showed. On insurance, a lot of the time, if you can be the one to really help them understand their Xactimate report, their insurance scope of work, as well as the process of how insurance works, now you're being that trusted advisor to help them through a situation that they've never made a claim before. They've never done this before, right? I've got an interesting one actually for the large bid side. One of the things that we did with our company is we created case studies. And
Mhm.
these are things that we stitch in directly with our presentation. And so when we're going in, so this one, we were doing a large bid on a Hardy job. So we created a case study for some complex work, for a James Hardy install. And we
Mhm.
talked about the clients we worked with, the duration, the project details, and all the materials we used and stuff like that. And then we gave them some overview photos of the, the building looking beautiful at the end of it, right? It's the same thing with something like this, where we were doing a rubber roof, this was a Eurolite roof. And so we explained all of this information, and then we show these images, and it's like, oh, well, my house isn't that big or that complex. I'm sure they can handle it and they know what they're doing. And so there's these little things that you start to try and educate people on to give them the confidence that you can handle this. You've been there, done that before. we can be your trusted advisor here because this is not complex for us. We've worked on far more difficult than your 2,000 square foot home to be able to make sure that it was leak proof for years and everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the inclusion of the case study. And just so people know, is that a feature that they can include within SumoQuote that they can build on?
Yeah, it's any case study, any marketing page, anything you build, you drag and drop it in, and it automatically just stitches into your presentation, or you can save it as a part of a library of resources in SumoQuote. And anytime you want to use it, you just click on it, layer it in wherever you want to in your presentation, you're done. So it
Mm.
very, very easy to do that stuff.
Yeah, that's great to have. And I'm sure once it's set up, super easy. Although I imagine you have templates and make it easy from the get-go.
A lot of templates, yes, for sure we do.
Awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to add that as an aside because it looks so nice. But moving on, our third action, you talked about solve. And I'd love you to expand on this a little bit because, aren't contractors already solving and fixing a problem by re-roofing already? Like, expand on what you mean as part of this part of the
Well,
process.
yeah, but you nailed it. Are we already solving a problem? Yes. But are we solving the problem that we think they have? Right?
Mhm.
We go in with roofing goggles on again, if it's a roofing job, and we think, oh yeah, it's this leak and it's because they don't have this flashing there, and I would repair it like this. And the homeowner's being like, well, yeah, duh, I know that it's leaking. Thanks, genius. Right? Like my problem is I don't have the money to pay for it. My problem is I need this roof replaced next week before my kid's wedding and all the relatives get into town. My problem is whatever, this long, I don't understand insurance claims. Um, One of the guys out there, is a guy
Mhm.
named Donald Miller. And you talked about there just sort of understanding what is that problem and, well, aren't we just fixing the roof? And no, yes and no, right? We know the technical problem that needs to be solved, but there's a far more complex problem that we need to understand in the scenario of their lives and what's going on there. So this whole concept of understanding and knowing the problem, and then being able to have the authority and the empathy to be able to connect with it and truly solve this, right? And so I'll share this with you. And this is something really fascinating. And I share it, it's free. And it's free because I just ripped it off from StoryBrand. I paid nothing from the, go buy the book. Donald Miller's StoryBrand is great. But this whole concept of having a character who has a problem, they meet a guide who gives them a plan and calls them to action, right? So typically as a contractor, we think of ourselves as the hero of the story. But the hero of the story is typically somebody that is lost, confused, doesn't know what's going on, right? So this applies to Star Wars just as much as it applies to Tommy Boy,
Mhm.
right? So you've got, doesn't matter if it's Luke Skywalker or Chris Farley, right? Luke Skywalker, orphan, doesn't understand the powers of the Force, has to save the galaxy. Chris Farley, dad dies, needs to save the company. They're a character that has this problem, and then they meet a guide, and that guide doesn't matter if it's Yoda or David Spade, two very different guides, but this is a big part where as contractors, we think that we're supposed to be the hero of the story. And so we
Mhm.
make our quote in our sales presentation all about us. And frankly, the homeowner doesn't care about us. They
Right.
care about themselves. And so for us to start to create the content in there, and it doesn't need to be difficult. Like I said, put in a photo of a rose bush. That's it. And that's where, with SumoQuote, we just make it where it's that drag and drop and it's in there and it's done. But doesn't need to be difficult to do these things, but little, small, subtle things. Once you understand their problem, now you can demonstrate empathy to connect with the character and their problem, and demonstrate authority to connect with their external problem in order to solve that together. So again, it's a very different approach. The long and short of it, because I'm long-winded on this one, don't think as a contractor you're the hero of the story. Make the homeowner the hero of the story. You're the guide, and you need to figure out how to position yourself correctly there.
Got it. Got it. Well, I never thought I would hear those two movies referenced together, but I really appreciate the underlying theme there. In that, they're the heroes need a guide and how that applies to this whole sales process for any contractor, really. Um, let's move on to the fourth element. You talk about removing risk, and I don't think you're talking about safety here, but maybe objections that the homeowners may have. How do you start to identify what may be holding them back? And then, of course, overcome those objections to push this sale to a, farther down the line.
Yeah, a lot of the time, and there's going to be a bit of a blend on 4 and 5 here because removing risk, sometimes it's that warranty and giving them the confidence that, hey, this is what our warranty is going to be like. It's already solving something for them where they're concerned about if anything happens, then what? And you start to put them at ease with addressing concerns that there's going to be the obvious upfront concerns. How do I pay for this? There's going to be the not as obvious upfront concerns. And you've got to start to recognize those things and start to pick away at those as you go through. A phenomenal sales presentation does not take away the need to have a good salesperson. You still need to have, right? And it's all of these elements should be ways that the salesperson communicates, should be on your website, should be on your review pages, should be on, in your quote. But that's where you need to make sure that you're thinking the salesperson, even though they need to be trained in this, the salesperson is not there 100% of the time when the homeowner is signing off on something. The quote is, your sales presentation is there 100% of the time when it's being signed off on. And so for you to put in, I'm not even saying as much time and energy as training salespeople, because that's a ton of time and energy to train. And there's phenomenal people for that out there. But for you to put some time and energy into this thing that's going to be staring them in the face when they're making that decision on who to sign with, that is the thing of how you start to put them at ease and remove that risk and give them confidence that they're going to get as phenomenal an experience in production and post-production and warranty and every stage throughout the journey.
Got it. Got it. Now that makes a lot of sense. That's the leave behind. That's the artifact. It's the thing that the homeowner returns to time and again, not just as part of the sales process, but later too, especially later on when they're referring a friend or something else, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Example. So how does that couple then with like the fifth step, prove, right? I can relate to that in marketing because companies have to prove that they can deliver what they promise. So, how do you think about that as wrapping up the proposal process?
Yeah, I think heavily about the proposal and how that can be included in the proposal. And so there's interesting things you can do with client testimonials and links to videos of clients, past clients within your sales proposal and stuff like that. But it's that whole concept of social proof, and that's where Signpost is amazing with this stuff as well. And it nails that part of it. I mean, it nails a bunch of it, but that part in particular, you think about going out to eat at a restaurant. I spend 10 to 15 minutes checking reviews, checking menus, that's 10 to 15 minutes that I spend on a $30, $40 decision, right? Like this is going to be a $15,000, $20,000 decision. Of course, they're going to look at reviews and they're going to try and look at who has had what experiences with them and how has they been handled. And is it overwhelmingly positive? Is it, totally hit and miss? Like, what are those experiences like? And so if you can start to weave those things into your sales quote and presentation, but you've got to have a place that you're pulling them from and how they're organized and stored to be able to do that stuff as well. So that whole concept of social proof is incredibly powerful and is critical to, I think, company success these days.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned online reviews being a huge part of it. And I think contractors have to remember or put on their consumer shoes and remember that we're all consumers and we're doing this kind of even subconsciously, throughout our day as we make all sorts of buying decisions, from restaurants to, where to get something tailored, to getting service on our air ducts to buying a new roof, right? This social proof is everywhere. I'm curious, are there other ways that you would recommend contractors create more credibility and prove themselves?
You know what? I was thinking, why don't I do this? Why don't I share my screen one more time here, and um, why don't I walk us through just sort of what the complete package looks like from
Sure.
a quote or presentation perspective here. Um, so I'll take you through a standard quote built in SumoQuote. I built this one in under 5 minutes. These are not complex and difficult to do.
Yeah.
Uh, but you see right away on the cover page here, right? We're looking to connect. We've got some of this proof here to give people confidence. And so there's a bunch of these things on each page that they're already included by just the design of it. We've got a text page. So, and this is, you can use templates. So it doesn't matter if it's retail or insurance or service or whatever the work is, you can quickly shift between them. But now you're creating a standardized process for your team on how to make sure they're communicating the right things that you want communicated. And then what we do is we make it really easy to stitch in custom marketing pages. So if a homeowner had these nasty black streaks all over the roof before, stitch in a page like this. It's the click of a button. You're directly addressing a problem that they've got. You're solving something. You're being thoughtful. You're showing them this stuff. Like this is, and by the way, what I love about this, I didn't realize right here, a roof in Florida after 6 years. This is an actual roof. Like they actually shingled half the roof with one brand and then shingled the other half with this Atlas Scotchgard. It blew my mind that that was an actual roof and just two different products as opposed to something photoshopped.
Yeah, love that.
Totally. How to compare contractors. Now you're helping make it easy for them to understand how, what's even the difference between you guys? You kind of all look the same, sound the same, even smell the same. Like, how do I even tell you apart? Right? So now you can, craft these things to help them through this stuff. Here's an example of social proof. And when I go down on one of these, you can see I've got these links embedded behind images. So they can just click on these, or if they're lazy, they can read the quote below. And like it's easy, right? And it's
Yeah.
very visual. It's very simple to go through and understand. Right? This is where visually they're going to look at these. They're not even going to bother reading the text half the time.
Yeah.
Now, we shouldn't forget this is a quote. So we do include, this is a good, better, best. So product and pricing, right here again, product and listing the upgrades and then talking about the advantages. Why does it matter to them? Why should they spend more money on this?
Mhm.
And the same with the best. An easy way to sign off. So there's what package do you want? What upgrades do you want? What products do you want? E-signing, everything's just click of a button on their phone, on their computer, easy. And of course, that story that you're taking them through when they're signing off on colors, stitch in color options,
Mhm.
right? Very simple, put this stuff in. And then of course you should have your terms and conditions. You need to make sure legally everything's tied up. But like I said, something that looks like this, I can build in under 5 minutes because you just create these templates and then you just make little tweaks that really feels custom to the homeowner and addresses their specific needs. And that's it. It doesn't need to be complex to do these things. It just needs to, it's for a contractor, you just got to have the right tools to do the job, right?
No, absolutely. And, that is a very impressive piece for the time required. And I think it just really goes a long way to impress homeowners and, show that you're committed to the job. And of course, more importantly, committed to the homeowner at the end of the day.
Yes, 100%. They are the hero of the story. You are the guide. That is a big thing to make sure it focuses on them.
So if someone's interested in learning more about SumoQuote, what should they do?
They can go to sumoquote.com. Here's a couple of QR codes. If you'd like a free trial, free 14-day trial, hit the QR code on the right or just go to sumoquote.com. I would strongly recommend people sign up for a demo because a 30-minute demo will show you hours of you trying to figure it out on your own and answer your questions. And right away, It's very simple, it's very easy, but jump on a demo and we'll be able to show you even a lot of custom content we can load into your account for you. So it's pretty powerful and it's really useful to jump on a demo if you have 30 minutes available in your life.
Awesome. So leave those on the screen for just a moment so people can navigate to the appropriate codes. But this has been a great discussion, Ryan. Really appreciate you coming on here and helping contractors of all sizes make a bigger impact and connect more effectively with their prospective customers. We'll have this episode posted in Signpost YouTube, where you can find more content to grow your business. Be sure to visit SumoQuote at sumoquote.com, as Ryan said, to learn how you can use this app to wow your customers with an amazing proposal. So we'll post links in the YouTube section. Thanks again, Ryan. Really appreciate your partnership and your time for coming on. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Laura, and thanks to the team at Signpost there. You guys are awesome. We strongly recommend you guys as well. So really appreciate you having us today.
Thanks again. Take care.
Okay, take care.